Hello, everybody. I'm Baron Davis. I'll be your moderator and leading this conversation for Business Inside the Game. Shout out to the Social Innovation Summit. Shout out to Zeev. He's been a great mentor in helping us start this platform, Business Inside the Game, where we look at multi-hyphenates, conversation, and where's the crux of problem solving between creatives, investors, athletes. So building community through platform, building communication through platform. And without further ado, I brought two of our founding members from Big, Guthrie, Dolin, Somesh Dash. And since I'm like my kid, I'm gonna read your bio on my phone. But I know Guthrie. Guthrie designed, our logo. He's been a really good friend. He is, let me do this right. Guthrie brings well over 2 decades of expertise in building cross-functional teams, fostering cultures of collaboration and creative excellence. Throughout his career, Guthrie has made significant contributions to design-driven companies with disruptive offerings such as Microsoft, Apple, Sony, Nike. Today, he is the executive director of global design for DNA at Ford Motor Company. Damn, that's good. Guthrie continues to shape the future of design, and he also is a guest lecturer at the Institute of Design at the University of Stanford, which is called D School. Ladies and gentlemen, Guthrie Dolin.
Thank you for having me. I need to take you around just to do that every time I walk into a room.
I like my intros.
Yeah.
Somesh Dash is a general partner at IVP. He joined the firm in 2005, right around the time I got to the Warriors. I think the next year, 2006, over 20 years of investing. Somesh has supported companies through IPOs and beyond. Some highlights include Amplitude, Business Insider, Discord, Pindrop, Snap, Uber, just to name a few. And he serves as a board of director or observer for IVP with portfolio companies like H1, Lyra Health, Motive, Pindrop Security, and Thrive Global. Outside of IVP, Somesh serves on the advisory council and boards at the Stanford University Graduate School of Business. A lot of Stanford, dude. I'm used to I got a lot of Stanford.
It's in the area. Yeah.
Overall, big into philanthropics, U.S. India strategic partner. He's a part of the U.S. India Strategic Partnership Forum, the Carnegie Endowment for Peace, Eat, Learn, Play, and Malaria No More. So as you see these guys, now I'm gonna give you. Now I'm gonna give them the big intro.
I got imposter syndrome now.
So guys, I would say tell me about yourselves, but I just read your whole damn bio.
And we're out.
Welcome to Business Inside the Game. This is how we're gonna do it. We're gonna end it in a bang. Really, we wanted to have a conversation at, just talking about leadership. We've heard AI, we've heard people raising funds. A big part of our, platform is just to have open conversation, right? And I would say, Somesh, seeing where I would say the next generation of investors and entrepreneurs are going, can you just speak about, where are we in this time of business? What are you looking at from an investment side? And, talk about what entrepreneur, what's the next, is trend going out?
Yeah.
Right, and what's coming into the new trend?
If you think about where we're sitting, if you asked anybody on the street right in front of the hotel 3 years ago to define what the future of technology would be, they'd be like, I don't know, apps, Android, cloud, right? And I think with this advent of artificial intelligence, I think we're going to see, this is kind of year 3 or 4 of what's going to be a 20 to 30 year revolution that's going to look like the PC, the internet, the mobile, but probably bigger and more global and hopefully more inclusive, because that's the lesson of what we've learned. I think the big thing, Baron, to your question, you and I talk about this a lot, founders today, they want equity. They want to be able to create products without being encumbered by old regulations, old financial institutions, The big thing that we're seeing right now is in verticals like healthcare, in education. I'm sure many of you have kids. A lot of us have kids in school. The way our kids are going to learn is going to be so different with AI and technology in the classroom than all of us who went through school. If you have disabilities, if you're autistic, if you are a visual learner, if you're an auditory learner, finally there are opportunities to actually customize the curriculum so that you can have a better learning outcome. That's what's exciting. Same with healthcare. The other part of it is defense. We're seeing a lot of things with the wars that are happening around the world. Countries are realizing we need to use technology to protect ourselves, and that's not just physical warfare, but cyber as well.
Yeah, Guthrie,
Yeah.
please chime in, because we were talking the whole time in the back around artificial intelligence, human intelligence, right?
Absolutely.
And where is that perfect matrimony like exists in your world?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great point, right? I mean, we sit here and we try to prognosticate about like sort of what the future is. And I think in this era of AI, where it's not even a hockey stick, it's a skyscraper, right? We're in this business of trying to predict the future. I'm working and designing systems that aren't going to, roll off the line at Ford for 5 years. So how am I figuring out what to do now that's going to land 5 years from now, let alone, like 5 months from now? And it's interesting, when I'm not trying to make this about Ford, really not. I'm just using it as an example because it's interesting, which is, when Henry Ford, launched the Model T, it was about democratizing technology. And there's been a lot of conversations this afternoon in this room about democratization of technology. And really what that is about giving people superpowers. I can now get from here to here a lot faster, right? And what we didn't know is when the Model T, what it really changed is the way that societies are organized. It actually gave birth to the suburbs. And how were we to know that or predict that this technology would change how and where people live and work? So I think AI is that, multiplied by 1 billion or 1 trillion or whatever quantum computing can figure out. And I think what we're doing now is really, we're starting to imagine a world in which every single person in this room, every single person that has access to technology now has superpowers. We're not going to see software dictated by these big companies. We're going to see bespoke software that's created from the minds of teenagers, from every walk of life. And I think we don't know where that's going to take us, but what it means is actually, I think, imagination and the human spirit and intuition times AI is actually what gets us someplace great.
Yeah, I think,
Not just AI.
Yeah, it's not just the AI.
It's
what
collaboration.
You're saying is basically it's the collaborator, right? I think, as we talk about AI for big, it's really how do we understand our members, how do we understand their industry, their interests, and then what they're interested in. Like, so what is your lifestyle? And, as we talk about, Somesh, investing in sports from the IVP side and investing alongside a lot of athletes, talk about, the new frontier of like the typical investor. Like, there's so many investors in the space now. Now investment money is drying up, right? Now, everybody's trying to raise money. I want to ask the question, is that good for now? Because when you start looking at, and Guthrie chime in on this, culture, right? Like solving for culture or creating technology that is going to solve a problem, is that going to be more beneficial now?
Yeah.
Are we looking for the entrepreneurs now? Are we looking for the right investors now? And how does AI help influence that?
I mean, I think you actually, right before this, I was listening to someone use the term, superpreneur, not solopreneur. But actually, I learned this from Baron, the power of community and collaboration could actually take a number of superpreneurs and turn it into a super team, to use a basketball analogy. Mm-hmm. I think what's interesting now is that if you have an idea, there's a marketplace that's digitized of people that are interested, but what's been lost with all the digital technology is soul and storytelling. And I think that's where Big and other organizations like it have a role to play, which is the average person wants to participate, whether it's in social innovation or for-profit innovation, but they don't know how. They think the way to do that is to buy an ETF, to go and buy the Big Tech 7, to buy a basket of stocks through a mutual fund. And that's kind of the average American investment horizon right now, and what's going to emerge in the next 5 years. I just saw, we're an investor in a company called Coinbase, and Brian Armstrong, the founder, was talking about how even registered investment advisors are going to be using technology now to make it more democratized.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that's holding back a lot of this is this idea that actually Barron had told me years ago, everybody feeling like they have to be in their own lane versus collaborating with each other, so that if you could form that super team, some of the best ideas that could be transformative, like the Green Revolution, the Model T, can actually come to life. Instead of 100 independent projects, you do one Manhattan project.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I mean, just to build on that, I mean, and this is what got me so excited about what Barron was doing with Big, is that it's very rarely do we have huge innovation come from a single epiphany from a single human, right? It typically is about the collision of ideas and people in a space together. And if we build that capacity for the collision of ideas and collaboration, that's the stuff that's really going to build, innovation. And we've also know through a lot of the buzzwords like, human-centered design and design thinking that ideas are better when there's more perspectives in the room, right? When we have our own shared experience and our own skill set, but if we connect with others, so you might have an enabling technology, but you don't quite know what to do with it. And I'm some designer that's looking at some problem, and I'm like, hey, I could fashion that technology to do X, Y, or Z. And so I think that's the magic of getting these diverse communities together and sharing ideas. And that's in real life, but it's also, I think it could be aided through networks.
If you can design your perfect community, what would it look like?
I know this is pretty close. Honestly, as diverse as possible. And I think sometimes people think about diversity in terms of skin color or gender, but it's also just about your life experience and where you are in your life. I am now, as I get older and my kids are now grown and I'm watching experience, I'm like, I want to hang out with them and their friends. But I'm also watching aging parents and going through health issues, and I want to learn more from them. And so when I look at diversity, I'm thinking it's all aspects of diversity. So it's as diverse as possible. And I'm trying to figure out how to continue to plug that in.
Building community.
I would say it's a little bit what the big summits have kind of done, which is the lost art of listening. I see this a lot now where everyone's shouting, but no one's listening. And I think a lot of the learning that comes from forums with which people can just learn about new people, cultures, technologies, business models, I think that's the kind of communities that we need to design more of. And even educationally, if you look at classrooms, fostering dialogue and debate without feeling like you're going to be hindering or saying controversial things. I think we've gotten so extreme with the rhetoric. Is it just me? Is everything either all caps or all lowercase? Whatever happened to mixing it up a little bit?
Sentence case, just real punctuation. Whatever happened?
No, shout out to social innovation because Zeev has been great in my afterlife as an athlete and being able to start in Vegas at CES and be able to listen. I think what's happening is you have a lot of investors. Maybe they have money, maybe they don't, maybe they're hesitant on the draw. You have a lot of entrepreneurs and you have a lot of people just asking for shit. Excuse my language. Give me some money, I'm building this, right? I'm looking at today, even from a sports perspective and saying, okay, we know that everybody is saying sports is kind of the new frontier for opportunity as far as owning teams, new leagues are popping up. I wanted to get your thoughts on that, Somesh, looking from, an investment standpoint and some of the companies that are coming through your space, and then Guthrie, at Ford, working with the NBAs or the WNBAs, talk about the sports industry and why do people consider, that high? I have my own answers, but I want you guys to talk from your perspective on why you're so excited about that.
Post-pandemic and post-digital, sports is one of the last frontiers that still people tune into live. And it's one of the last community galvanizing events that people watch in groups, actually, not silo. And there's the actual event, but as Barron, has taught me in the last, 20 years since we know each other, it's actually the conversation around the event that's so important. We're investors in Discord, as Baron said. A lot of the data we see is just people engaging around games and sports in that way. And like before, during, after, the best part is the empowerment of athletes to enable them to have their voice more than just the commentators and broadcasters who have never touched a basketball or football. It's so wonderful to see that trend, and it's just the beginning of it with podcasts like Baron's doing with Draymond. But I think the most important thing in sports to understand is it's good business. I actually think if you look at the new leagues that are coming up, the new formats, whether it's the NBA, the NFL, you're seeing a lot of global investors suddenly say, hey, we want to be in American sports because it's the cultural hotbed of the world, actually. And Americans also are getting more globally conscious, whether it's F1 or cricket. You know, you look at all these different sports that are starting to grow in America. Soccer, of course, 20 years ago with the World Cup next year. But I think the thing that could hurt all this, if I could say one comment, and it's something we were just talking about, is our youth in America and the way we do youth sports. We have changed youth sports to turn it into a factory where kids have forgotten how to collaborate, to play, to love, to try different sports. And now we've turned it into a business in the AAU and other things, which is unfortunate, actually, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's $1,500 a month for a family or for a parent to, you know, keep their kids playing AAU competitive basketball. And so you start looking at, you know, the average spend per household in that space. You're talking about $800 to $1,500, you know, for your kid to turn out average. You know what I mean? But you know, the bar has been raised. Right?
Yeah.
It's an expensive hurdle. Like I always say, like there will never be hardly be another Baron Davis story that comes along because I played basketball for free. Everything was, you know, free. But now you have to have that, you know, that sponsor or, you know, that foundation that's sponsoring that team for that kid who has no money to be able to afford to have trainers and keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah. No, I was just going to add, I mean, something that was really interesting, and you may or may not know this, but I worked on the digital experience for the AT&T Stadium in Arlington.
Oh, wow.
when the Cowboys moved there. I also worked on the digital experience for the 49ers and Levi's Stadium, and we actually launched a company through that. But I say this as a fan because I never, you know, did anything other than, you know, shoot around at school and, you know, miss a lot. But I'm a huge sports fan, and what I observed as I did my research was that live events were very difficult to get to, in and out, everything, and very expensive. So we got an access problem. But something special happens in those walls, which is that social norms disappear, and a whole new community is created around an event, around fandom and allegiance, whether it's community or city or a player. And I just think that, you know, we have to tap into like sort of what is good and actually sort of brings us joy about sports to find the great opportunities. And yeah, like I get a little bit worried as I see, you know, I'm glad that now that collegiate athletes are getting a little piece of the pie, but you know, it just exposes that we've got a business from when they're little kids all the way up, and you know, that it's important for the athletes, but it's also like, where does the fan fit into this? And I think if we can find a way for the fan to fit in more synergistically and holistically, I think that there's going to be real business opportunities there.
Yeah, I would say my prediction, you'll see probably more fan-owned teams.
Yeah.
Right, and fans having an opportunity. You know, they tried through blockchain and crypto before. I'm sure they'll try again. But you know, you start looking at even some of these micro leagues, like street ball has yet to form its own NBA. Softball is now starting. You know, it's on the rise. But when you look at sports, I just think that it's the ultimate collaborator. When you look at a diverse pool of people, when you look at, you know, different socioeconomic structures, but when you all, like you say, when you land at that destination, it's kind of one mission, one goal, and everybody is there to support. And so, you know, my whole take on sports is it's the reason why I am an athlete and I love it, but it's green, right? So it needs new investors, it needs new entrepreneurs, it needs a new community, because as athletes, we are on the other side of it, and we see holes, we see problems that need to be solved, and we're trying to, cross-collaborate and find the right partnerships with brands or innovators to really bridge that gap. And I say it starts from youth sports. The same problems with youth sports are going to be the same problem with professional sports, but the same opportunity in youth sports is going to be the same opportunity, on a professional level. And with all that, Guthrie, Somesh, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for being
guys.
a part of our conversation.
Yeah.
Business Inside the Game. Sign up, teambig.io. We do this all the time. Mixers, conversations, and sign up for that. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you, Zed.